to help change
Welcome,
policy.
everyone. I think that we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
No, I
Let's
didn't
do
know.
it. So this is Jennifer Toon. My name is Lori Mellinger, and we are part of the steering committee for the Statewide Leadership Council. And that's why we're all here today. We've invited some fabulous guest speakers. We're going to kind of give you an overview why you're here and what you can do to get involved in the reform of the criminal justice system. So what do you want to say, Jennifer?
I'm really excited that we're in this space with you. Statewide Leadership Council is a group of formerly incarcerated folks who are working desperately to change the criminal legal system. So we're really excited for all of us to be here and talk and learn and share together. You want to introduce our
vendors? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jen. We've got the Austin area Urban League. Who's there representing them? We've got Goodwill. Yay! We've got On Point Reentry. We've got Pamela here with us with Walking by Faith Ministry. So welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here. And PCRC. Oh, I'm sorry about that. We do. We've got Big Country Ranger College. How soon we forget our list, right?
Yeah, where we come from. Cool. So would each one of
And
you?
we've got Jails to Jobs.
Yes, Jill's the job. So would each one of you like to maybe take 2 or 3 minutes and tell us a little bit about your organization? Sean?
We'll start with you since you're right in the right spot.
All right. Hi, my name is Sean Oliver. I work for Joe Jobs. We're a Christian non-for-profit, and basically what we do is we teach youth ages 15 to 26 life skills and job skills, and we pay them at the same time.
Nice.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Pamela Bryan. I'm the founder of the organization. And what we do, I do a lot of things. The re-entry. Okay, baby. Now just with you on this name. Okay. So what we do, we're an organization that form that want to be a part of dropping the recidivism rate for formerly incarcerated people by formerly incarcerated, and people that are homeless. So what we do is a lot. We're peer recovery support, and we go out into homeless camps right now that people don't go into, and we provide hot meals and basic, resources. And we come out here to different places, and we meet other people. So if they need something, we can direct them to you. So we're just like a peer-based, driven organization that's trying to help drop the recidivism rate any way that we can.
Who else would like to go ahead?
You want me?
Please.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we are live streaming it just so people can join us from. Absolutely. So it's right there.
So I'm the outreach coordinator for Goodwill Central Texas. I bet you all know about our stores, but then some other grants fund is we help people get jobs. Directly, some of them work for us. Some of them we literally have a staffing agency. We help place other people. We help people get occupational training where people end up with skills where the job needs them more than they need the job. And pre-COVID, almost 40% of the people we helped were actually people who had some involvement in the justice system. We're ramping that back up. Obviously, that kind of shifted some things for obvious reasons. But during that entire time, while we're working with people for several months, they have somebody there on one-on-one support, helping them with resume building, interview skills, working on their budget. And so those are all things that are just helpful, and all of that's on us. That's entirely on our dime as long as people qualify. So and I don't know if people know this about Goodwill, so we're trying to correct that. So if there's anybody here from any organization or from any group that you ever want us to talk to you at a little bit more length, that's kind of my job. I do that at churches, at schools, with individuals. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Talk about Texas Fair Defense.
Sure. Hi, thanks. My name is Hans Maverick. I'm a legal assistant for the Pro Bono program at Texas Fair Defense Project. What we do primarily is fight the criminalization of poverty. We do that several ways. One of the ways is we help people get their driver's license back, get their driver's license restored. We help people resolve their criminal records, get their criminal records cleared so that they can get driver's license, get a job, get an apartment. You know, we all already know all the things that stand in the way between people getting their how criminal records interfere with people's ability to function fully in society. A major area we work in is access to counsel. We work with people who are facing criminal charges, who supposedly have a criminal or court-appointed attorney. If that attorney has not been appointed or that attorney is not doing an effective job, what we do is put a little pressure on the prosecutors, on the court to make sure they have access to an attorney. We also do strategic litigation and advocacy at the state legislature to address the root causes of some of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, we also want to recognize Annette, who we're sitting here in the grassroots leadership office. We want to give her a big thanks. So thank you all for the applause. And Lynette, tell us about grassroots leadership.
Oh, sure. So, thank y'all for coming. I'm one of the co-executive directors here at Grassroots. Our mission is to end mass incarceration and deportation and make those a thing of the past, because we know that Black and brown people are the first to get locked up and the last to get out. So yeah, that's what we do. We have a base here. Austin is our base, and we also have a base in Houston. We have 4 membership bases, and it's Texas Advocates for Justice here in Austin as well as in Houston. They fight all our CJ work and policy work and change policies that way. And then we have Mujeres Luchadoras, which is here in Austin, and it's a group of Indigenous women that had came out of Huddle detention, formulated their group, and so they still work on the policy to shut down Huddle, as well as policies on the immigration side. And then we have our last group, which is ICE out of Austin, and in that membership group, they fight all our immigration policies here in Austin as well as in Houston. So thank you.
Would you meet?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yep, there I am. My name is Letitia Hill, and I am a life and business coach based out of Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
I am also formerly incarcerated. Dallas in the house. I am also formerly incarcerated, which means that makes me eligible to be a member of the Statewide Leadership Council. And because I have firsthand experience at how difficult it is to re-enter back into the society, re-entry is a passion of mine, specifically in the area of employment. I have a 25-year corporate career, and as a result of the trauma that I've experienced through the prison systems, I have to reinvent myself. And somewhere people figured that because I was locked away, all of my experiences and my skill set leaked out of my ear onto the table, and they don't think that I'm worthy anymore. I now am about 1.5 years from the prison gate, still on supervised release, still aggressively seeking active employment. In the meantime, I do what I do, and that's create. That's why I'm speaking. That's why I'm coaching. I am working on building a diversion program for girls between the ages of 12 and 17. You heard Ms. Annette talk about how our women, especially in this day and time, are under siege, particularly in the criminal justice system. And the majority of them on a far outlying ratio are brown and Black girls. So I feel that I have a calling. I feel that I know better, so I must do better. And that is what brings me here to share these things with you all. Thank you for your time.
He's like, all that, just tell me your name. So my name is Jennifer Toon. I am one of the steering committee members with Statewide Leadership Council. I also work with the Coalition of Texans with Disabilities. I work at the intersection of disabilities and criminal justice. And I'm also the co-founder of Lioness, which is Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. So I want to talk to you a little bit about voting. And I'm going to kind of tell a quick little story of why voting is so important to me. Last session, we worked really hard on a bill called HB 686, known as the second look bill, right? We fought for years for this bill. And this would have allowed kids who were typically sentenced in the early 90s. I was one of those kids, but I was fortunate enough to have a sentence that was manageable. 20 years is still a tough sentence for a 15-year-old, but many of my friends were charged as adults back during a time when we were referred to as super predators. I once had a psychiatrist tell me I was born without a soul. So these children, unlike myself, received sentences that many of them are still there. They're middle-aged ladies and will probably be elderly women before they see parole. It was extreme sentencing that we typically don't do for children anymore because we understand the way kids' brains work in terms of consequence and what have you. So we were working on this bill that would allow eligibility sooner for those who had been convicted when they were kids. And I went to testify. It was my first bill I'd ever testified on. And I was shaking. I was almost in tears. I was deeply passionate about it. And that bill went through the House, went through the Senate, got a little watered down in the Senate, but we were so excited that it passed with such support, bipartisan support, right? This can't go wrong. Goes to the governor's desk, and he vetoed it. And I found out that he had vetoed that bill the morning I was getting up to go to Gatesville to visit a friend of mine who had been locked up since she was a child. And y'all, they had already said, my parents are going to hire a parole attorney. They were already putting together all this stuff because the bill had passed. Just had that one last step, right? And so I got the bill notification in my email. And at first I read it and I was like, oh, wow. And then I was like, wait a minute, I didn't read that right. And I went back. I said, so now I got to go up here and tell these women that no, you're not getting another chance just yet. So I tell that story to people when we talk about voting because sometimes it feels like, and it is an incredible amount of work to get legislation passed. And people don't realize just how much, and it starts way before session starts. But to work so hard and to build up so much hope and to have it vetoed just like that was devastating. So how does that relate to voting? Well, if we have different people in office, then we wouldn't have a veto, right? So I can't overstate the importance of what it means to be registered to vote. When we were in prison, many of us didn't know that we had the right to vote. We didn't know. Nobody told us. It's posted if you dig through it in the law library, but TDCJ in the state of Texas is not super anxious to let us know that we are allowed to vote once our sentences are complete. So if you're formerly incarcerated, if you have a loved one that's formerly incarcerated, if you write people that are still incarcerated, share it with them and make sure that they know that once their sentence is complete, they are off supervision, they've got that certificate, they're done, they are allowed to register to vote. Please don't do that if you are, still in supervision, because I think we remember several incidents over the past year or two of just how devastating and painful it is that they want to punish us when we have voted when we're not quite finished with our sentence. But we are allowed to, and please share that far and wide. I voted for the first time in my life. Was it this year or last year? Last year. I think it was last year. And I remember when people would ask me on the inside, what's the one thing you're looking forward to when you're finally done with your sentence, which was 27 years in the making. But, and you're probably wondering, didn't you say you got, 20 years? Yeah, there was some other stuff. But I kind of had to go back in. But what was the one thing you really, and I would tell the girls, I would say, I can't wait. One day I'm going to be allowed to vote. And they're like, what? Girl, I want a hamburger. But not really understanding, and this is part of our responsibility too, to educate our brothers and sisters on the inside, the extreme importance of voting. Because to me, voting meant that I was finally whole, that I was finally done, that I would finally fully been restored as a full person in society's eyes, although I quickly learned when I got out, that's still not always the case, right? But it is a step. So please, if you haven't registered to vote, please do so. Lori?
Am I allowed?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to ask a quick question.
Sure.
What typically are the types of issues that the young girls face when they before they go to prison? I mean, what is it something about? Is it hard felonies, or could you just give us a couple examples? But you said they don't get out, or they typically don't get out. So I'm just trying to figure out what makes them go in.
I'm so glad you asked that because I'm actually towards the end, I'm going to talk just about women's experience in incarceration, and I'm happy to answer that question. Absolutely.
Any other questions for Jen?
Any voting questions, anything like that? Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Sorry to interrupt. Just so you know, if you are eligible to vote, you are also eligible to volunteer to be a deputy voter registrar. And I would encourage you to do that because because of where we come from, we have connections to folks who don't know what the information that Jen just shared. So not only can you share the news that people can vote, you can help them get registered to vote.
Thank you so much for that. Well, I don't do long introductions, but if I tell you anything about who's coming up next, it's that she's my daughter. So the fruit never really falls far from the tree, especially sometimes when it comes to incarceration. Ariana?
Hard to follow that one up. My name is Ariana Millinger. I've been impacted by the criminal justice system in two ways. Me, myself going into the criminal justice system, and also both my father and my mother being incarcerated. So I come to you to speak on Clean Slate because Clean Slate is legislation that's about to be coming up again. Clean Slate is so very important to me, especially as somebody who has experienced expungement, because I know what it takes to have gone through expungement. So expungement for me took a lot of money. It took an attorney, and a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So that's why it's important, because I've seen the benefits from employment to even whenever I did go to jail this past time, I saw the benefits from expungement and what people can obtain from this. So the Clean Slate, 1 in 3 Americans have a record. 9 in 10 employers run a background check for employment. 1 in 2 children have a parent incarcerated. So those are large numbers. If you think about that, everybody in this room especially has been touched by the incarceration system, criminal justice system in one form or another. The mission of the Clean Slate is to advocate for policies to automatically clear all eligible people, criminal records across the US. So this is a national initiative, but it's a Texas initiative as well. It's lawmakers, it's people of faith, it's a whole collective of a bunch of people coming together for the same reason. So the goal is to provide automatic record clearance to those who are already eligible. Currently, 7 states have passed the laws to do this, and we're hoping to seek in Texas to provide those same things. Those states are Pennsylvania, passed this in 2018, Utah did it in 2019, Michigan in 2020, Connecticut in 2020, Delaware, Oklahoma, and Colorado in 21 and 22. So if that shows you anything, that there are states already doing it, we just have to come on board as Texas. Thank you. Oh, any questions?
When you said the eligibility, what they had to be eligible,
So eligibility for expungement is a really tricky thing. And it's hard to know whether you're eligible for expungement based off of what your arrest record is and what you, I guess, someone help me out
So
here.
if you've got a conviction, like if you've been to prison, that cannot be expunged. But if you have a case where the charges were dismissed or you had deferred adjudication probation that you successfully completed, then after a term of 2 years, you can go back and request that that arrest record be expunged. So you don't have a criminal background show up at all on a search.
And
So-
even like Ariana's case, she was no billed, which is a miracle in and of itself by the grand jury. And so she still had to get that arrest expunged.
Yes, so even though the arrest was deemed that they weren't gonna pursue the charges, it still showed up on my record. So I still had to have the attorney to be able to follow the paperwork. And in my situation, it costs about in total, $12,000. So not many people have that ability to throw that kind of money out there. And so that's why it's so important to me is to be able to offer people those opportunities for housing, for employment. It affects all aspects of our
How
life.
long did it take you to complete your expungement?
After the no bill, it was very quick,
I mean, 2 years, 3 years? I mean, to get to
less within months.
okay.
So that's what the clean slate is goal to do, is those people that are eligible to automatically do it for them
So
without money, without anything. They'll just be eligible to clear
It doesn't
it.
take a couple of years, it just takes a couple of months, you're saying?
I wouldn't even say a couple, I'd say like 1 month it took me.
But where did the $12,000 come in?
For the attorney. Yeah, for the attorney to get me no bill. And then he just had to file a piece of paper. For
Okay,
like-
what if, you go to jail and you stay 9 months for arsonist? I sold a car to a youngster and he burned the car and it was still in my name. So they took me to jail, said that I did it. But when they gave a description, and the dude had dreadlocks, tattoos on his whole body, and he I am 60 years old, and don't have anything, but I stayed there 9 months, but then when I went in there and got a new lawyer, they dismissed it, but it's still on my record.
Correct. And so that would be under eligibility, I believe.
Also, certain first-time Class A misdemeanors. Originally, that bill was supposed to be for a larger number of convictions, but it got watered down into just Class A misdemeanors, which made me mad until I found out that there was a friend of mine that was denied a job for a Class A misdemeanor. So I guess it helps.
One of the first stock lines I learned as a legal assistant at Texas Fair Defense Project is, it's complicated, talk to a lawyer. And I say that somewhat tongue in cheek, but the fact is it is complicated. And part of what the Clean Slate Initiative is to simplify it and clarify it and make it as automatic as possible. But there are a lot of gotchas. We have some videos and stuff on our website, fairdefense.org. I'm not just saying that to plug the organization, but because there are some videos of the attorneys that on our staff who actually do that, who can talk, and they're CLEs for other attorneys to show you exactly how to tell whether your charge is eligible or not. But it is way more complicated than it ought to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. So, do you know what the history is on those states that made it automatically happen?
Do I know the history of what? Sorry.
You said something, you named a few states where it automatically happens already. Do you know how that came to be in those places?
So through organization, organizing.
Efforts, the same way that I think any change is really enacted is people get touched by it, people get angry about it, and then people do something about it.
So if you follow it in New York, it went all the way through Senate and then also afterwards.
It also went to the Senate, what happened?
So this bill, they're in legislation right now in New York. It did because as I said, it's a national campaign. So it went all the way to Senate and now it's been denied. So it's a big deal in New York right now.
Oh, it's been denied in New York? Expungement?
So this bill as a clean slate bill.
Right.
Peace and power to the people. Some of y'all know me, some of y'all don't. I'm Shepard Watson, inmate 2306693 of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, but also the founder and administrator of Austin Area Organization, Working Group 512. Our offices are right down the street. I want to challenge your frontal lobe today and ask you to consider, why are you here? But also, why are we here? I returned from TDCJ on May 7, 2020, after serving 378 days en route to becoming a felon. On my way, I earned the title of inmate lawyer after working on over 500 cases in the year or so I was down, helping 100 men gain their release. Upon release, I did 400 push-ups in front of the door of Williamson County Jail, and I ain't stopped working ever since. I think we're the only justice-led core services agency in Austin, and one of the few in Texas. Working Group 512 holds reentry as a ministry within our back office. So you can't really be against reentry and fit into our organization. Our core membership when we first began were 5 felons out of 9 total people. We haven't quit working in this city of ours, coming into our 3rd summer. Our food access program has rescued over 4 million pounds of food in 2 years, delivering over 500,000 items in Travis County. We've operated our reentry initiative since 2020, and not only have I successfully been discharged from parole, but 5 of the guys I personally served time with are currently experiencing over 200 days sober and clean. Nice. The color of mass incarceration is a dark hue, with 20 million Americans being convicted felons and roughly 100 million individuals having a criminal record. I've knocked the doors here in this county, and over 70% of the homes have a criminal record. I'm sure that's alarming to quite a few. This is something we don't talk about. So, can someone return from jail and transform into their personal power? Can someone serve 15 years in the hell of prison and come back and become a powerful individual? Certainly. I'm looking at certain individuals around the room. Why am I here? To substantiate my words with proof. Since returning from prison, I've gained 16 of 19 grants applied for, earned 3 procurements, participated in 3 fellowships, and 3 accredited training programs. I'm also serving on the board of 2 nonprofit organizations. In a couple of weeks, we'll have a national tour, the End of Isolation tour, coming to Austin. Be at Holy Cross Catholic Church. Somehow it fell into my lap, and I'm helping organize for it. Internationally renowned player. Again, ask yourself, can you come back from prison and become powerful? Somewhere. For those of us here, can we eliminate the biases placed against guys and gals like myself? Ariana's spoken of expungements, and there's also disclosure, but not everyone can gain either. So why are we here? To see these individuals alongside me today and know that power lives in the room. I'm asking you to either join the Statewide Leadership Council today after this meeting, or help us build from an outside capacity. We've done this in Dallas. We've done this in Houston. I just came back from Baltimore. SLC is overcoming barriers and transcending regional dissonance, I'd say. But I want you to also know that because we're all here, I think we should swallow this. Let's keep building. Let's continue building. Let's continue operating from the core of what you hear from today. You go back to your homes. Share the perspectives of individuals that you probably would have passed here on Cameron Road if they were at the bus stop. So that we can not only overcome the barriers and biases of reentry, but also improve the delivery of justice everywhere. If you're in, stay tuned for the rest of the contributors today. I thank you for your time.
Easy to introduce Lauren, because I used to tell people all the time that's who I wanted to be when I was Lauren Johnson, y'all, ACLU, was gracious enough at the last minute to say yes to us. So y'all welcome Lauren.
Suddenly want to play Duck Duck
So on the paper, it said I was supposed to tell it. It says, tell a story of incarceration and work within the injustice system. I have been to prison 3 times. My son, who just graduated high school a few weeks ago, was born in the Travis County Jail. I found out I was pregnant with him a few days before I was arrested and no longer had a choice. I was having a baby. Thankfully, unlike most of the stories that start out like that, I had a family member who was able to take him for me while I did my sentence in TDCJ. And I came home about a week before he turned a year old. I got to see him take his first steps, and I married his father, and we bought a house, and we had 2 more children. We lived happily ever after. Yeah, except that's not a real thing if you keep living, right? And so about 5 years in, we both relapsed, and I broke out in handcuffs, which is usually how it happens for me. And first time ever bonded out of jail, had never had that opportunity before. And I remember talking to my attorney and saying, I've been doing good for 5 years. I just need a chance. Like, give me probation and weekends in jail or work release or something to hold me accountable and not take me away from the people who depend on me. And my attorney, the person representing me, said, they don't think you've been doing well. They think you just haven't been getting caught. I don't operate like that. I don't not get caught. That's not how I do things. So anyway, I fought for several months while I was out on bond, and ultimately it became clear that I was going to go to prison again. This was Williamson County, which has got a reputation for their tough on crime. And it was my 4th felony drug conviction. It was a syringe full of water. But it tested positive for methamphetamine trace amounts. And so trace amounts of methamphetamine is still a felony in Texas. And so I started making arrangements so that I could go to prison. And it took 3 people to fill my place while I was gone. Somebody to care for my grandmother, 2 people to move in and help care for my kids because my husband couldn't pay our mortgage and pay for childcare for 3 children under the age of 8. So that 7 months in jail, what happened? Do you think that I got treatment or rehabilitation or education or anything to change the circumstances that led me into the jail? No. We collectively paid for me to spend 7 months in jail to no purpose, right? At the end of the day, that 7 months in jail is not what kept me clean and sober after I was released. It didn't change my circumstances. It just wasted a bunch of money to keep me in a prison, just like we're doing with most of the people who are incarcerated. We're not actively doing anything for rehabilitation or education or creating any kind of opportunity to solve the root causes of why people wind up in jails and prisons in the first place. So I came home from that incarceration March 22nd of 2011. At that point in time, I didn't know the power of that we each have. I can see the Capitol sometimes in my travels around town, and that building never felt like a place where I could have an impact. And it kind of didn't even feel like what happened there really had a tangible impact on my life. Until this one day, a few months after I was released, the neighborhood Facebook group lit up and said, we need people to show up and sit in a chair in this hearing room for a subcommittee hearing about the water, because our water rates they were trying to raise them. We have crappy water. It's not City of Austin, it's a private company. And I went up there to keep my water rates from going down because politics is personal, right? And so I showed up and I watched the representatives fighting for us, which kind of surprised me. I remember growing up seeing my grandfather had written the governor, and I was like, this guy's crazy. Doesn't he know the governor is not reading his letter? But now I understand, right? Now I understand the power that each of us had. if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't try so hard to keep you away from it. And so anyway, I got involved in advocacy. I remember my first time going into the Capitol to talk to members about the bill that I was working on and to testify my first time. And I remember going in and I was going in to testify for people with felony drug convictions to get food stamp assistance. And there's like a level of shame and, I'm a felon, I'm asking for food stamps, like it's all of the layers of guilt and shame that you can pile up on each other. And there was a woman that came in and she had the charts and the graphs and she said, for every dollar that is spent, that is given to people in food stamp assistance, $3 goes into our economy. And she had all this data and research, and it was so amazing. And I was like, oh, thank God she's here. She's the important person today. She's got all of the persuasive arguments for why we should change this. And what I learned along the way from my baby advocacy to now is that that data and research is important and it's helpful, but it is not what changes laws. And so understanding the power of your own voice and your testimony and the story that you have and the experience that you have, that is the key to changing the world. So what else am I supposed to talk about? Alternatives to mass incarceration. So currently I do work for the ACLU. I'm not here in my professional capacity today. I'm here because I'm a longtime member of the Statewide Leadership Council and Texas Advocates for Justice and all these other groups of amazing people coming together to try to do their part to change the world. Right now, the work that I'm doing is focused in Houston because what we're seeing is that logic and reason and even well put together arguments for reasonable laws are not breaking through the barrier that exists at our top of the state leadership right now. And it's very resource intensive to try to change a law at the state level. And it usually doesn't happen on your first go. But with the current makeup of our legislature and the governor and lieutenant governor, it kind of feels like an impossible task. And I want to earmark that because that doesn't mean we stop working on it, right? That doesn't mean we give up and put our tail between our legs and go home. It means that we continue laying a foundation so that when the circumstances and opportunity is right, we've already done the work that we need to push through. But for right now, we're thinking about where are the places that we can have an impact on the local level, right? We can, the city of Houston is one of the top 3 largest jails in America. So we've got an average of 9,000 to 10,000 people incarcerated there every single day. So if we can impact laws in Houston, then we can impact a significant portion of the population. And also, as you change things in these bigger cities, sometimes it's easier to kind of trickle up. So right now I'm thinking about how we expand cite and release in Houston. I'm thinking about how we do some of the things that we've done in Austin and Houston. And then also how do we gear up to continue to lay that foundation at the state capitol so that in the future, when everybody gets out and votes and we have either a change in leadership or they understand that we're not playing and they finally decide to play ball, then we can open up the opportunities to create the world that we want to live in. I'm gonna stop there. Does that work?
That's
okay.
Fantastic. When I got out of prison in 2015, when did that law change, Lauren? Was it 2013, 14? Yeah, 15. I knew so many women who were hustling food pantries like all the time. Why? Because they couldn't get food stamps. So we appreciate your work.
So our next guest speaker is someone that I admire greatly. He is a powerful advocate for youth justice. Andrew, would you like to come up?
Y'all are a hard crowd to follow, I tell you. And it's a mutual level of respect for Jennifer and this entire group. I'm Andrew Heston. I'm a lawyer with Texas Appleseed. I want to thank each of you for your candor and your vulnerability and sharing your stories. Like Lauren said, I think that's how we move the needle, especially when we have such a callously evil state government, that we operate under here in Texas. So I wanted to think about some legislative advocacy. I think it's really important to have folks at the state capitol building, even when it does feel kind of bleak. And I want to focus on what y'all have probably been seeing in the news over the past couple of years, critical race theory bans. So I work on education justice issues with Jennifer and some other folks in coalitions across the state. And early in 2020, we started to hear various folks, I think across the country, talk about critical race theory and how it's been used to indoctrinate kids. And they're talking about critical race theory, right? Really a red herring, right? And really what they're saying is that we don't want to talk about racism or sexism or homophobia or all these various like evil systems that try to separate people based on what makes them diverse and what makes them unique. And then just try to use that to censor people, right? Not have them speak, right? So it started in the regular session of 2021, where Bill HB 3979 moved through the process through both the Texas House and the Senate, was ultimately passed. There are like various provisions of it, but basically you can't talk about certain aspects of history, like the civil rights movement, like Rosa Parks, Cesar Chavez, and just folks who have contributed to our move toward a more racially just world and society. And so around this time last year, there were 3 special sessions in 2021 in Texas. So they kept coming back to the Capitol, not to address, let's say, like the power grid failure during the winter storm or things that would actually benefit folks in Texas, but to ramp up the critical race theory bans and say we need to make it stronger and make sure they can't actually talk about racism or these other evil systems. And so I spoke at the Capitol building, the Senate State Affairs Committee, to talk about my experience in fighting the school to prison pipeline, which I'm sure you've all kind of seen and heard, where young people, as early as elementary school are identified as problem children, especially if they are Black and brown, if they're LGBTQ, if they're kids with disabilities. And then they are constantly identified for placement in alternative education. They're suspended, they're expelled, they face school police who brutalize them, terrorize them, arrest them, harass them. And so I made the connection last year in my testimony. Who is it that's going to be disciplined for talking about critical race theory? It's going to be Black and brown children, it's going to be LGBTQ kids, it's going to be children with disabilities. And if you put this theory, this critical race theory ban in place, really it's not addressing the fundamental root causes of inequality in our society, and it's creating an opportunity for more criminalization of kids, right? And, despite our best efforts, we probably that day had 100 people come from across the state. It's still passed, right? And there's still a critical race theory ban in place. But what I do want to encourage y'all is that your voice does have significant power, as all the speakers have shared, that I think in coalition with one another, we do face a tough landscape here over the next few years, over the next decade. Don't want to sugarcoat that. But change does come about through organized communities and folks talking and speaking truth to power and just saying what their experiences are. So I'm leaving a stack of business cards here. Would really encourage folks to come to the state capitol starting in January. You may have gotten seen through your experience that in Texas, we have legislative sessions during odd years. So in 2023, in January, it'll kick off again, try and get clean slate passed and try to take back the critical race theory ban. But, I would love to work with y'all and love to do anything that I can to uplift your voices because they are so critically important. And just thank y'all for this opportunity.
One of the things that I took from what Lauren said, and it really hits home when I introduce Mr. Leo back here, who, full disclosure, I haven't met in person, but I knew because I heard a story that Katie Ford told one time. So Lauren said something about 3 people who stood in that gap for her when she went to prison. And I want y'all to welcome Dan, who's going to tell us how his organization stands in that gap for some of us when we go to prison.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. And thank you each for your individual leadership and what you're doing to lead and do something. I'm just soaking it up this morning, listening, or this afternoon, listening to you all and learning. So thank you to each of you. So I'm with Seedling Foundation, and we're an Austin-based nonprofit, Austin born and bred. And we provide school-based mentoring for children impacted by criminal incarceration. The organization was started right here in Austin in the mid-2000s because our founder, an Austin attorney named John Blazier, was approached by Austin ISD principals that said, there's kids that are not getting help specifically. There's lots of great nonprofits in town doing great things like Big Brothers Big Sisters, and they're reaching some of the kids, in communities and schools and other organizations, but nobody is specifically reaching out to help children impacted by criminal incarceration. And as principals, what we're seeing is attendance is a little bit lower, not for every child, but for many. It's hard for anybody to get their kids to school these days. And when you're a single caregiver, that's even harder, right? They're also seeing these kids showing up, some of them, not all of them, because we never, ever, ever put children in a box and say that they're this, that, But sometimes they're showing up a little bit more in the principal's office and a little bit more in the nurse's office. Why? Because they're stressed. They're going through a lot. They may act out. They may feel sick to their stomach because they're not feeling good emotionally either. There's just a lot that's going on, and there's nobody to talk to for the kids, right? And so the principals asked John, can you do something? And so John put his head together with some people, and they started exploring what we could do in Austin, and mentoring was found to be a great way. And proud to tell you that 17 years later, we've provided mentoring for over 2,500 children in Central Texas impacted by criminal incarceration. We do it very well, and I'm really, really proud to be there. So I want y'all to consider something. So if you've never looked it up, I want you to look it up. And that is, what are adverse childhood experiences? I don't know if anybody's ever heard or looked up that term before, ACEs. But go on the internet, look it up. All of us have them. ACEs, there's 10 of these ACEs, and it's a study that was done by Kaiser Permanente about what children can experience that can have major effects. And all of us, me included, have them. Okay, there's 10 of them. Having a parent who's incarcerated is one of these 10 ACEs. Other things are being a survivor of severe child abuse, being removed from the home by Child Protective Services, living with drugs and alcohol. And there's 10 of these things. Domestic violence, right? Children who have an incarcerated parent happen to average 3.7 of these 10 ACEs on a 10-point scale. And 4 is seen as the tipping point. When you get to 4 of these ACEs, and you have some of these effects already, but the likelihood increases exponentially of major depression, of heart disease as an adult, of yourself turning to drugs and alcohol because of these adverse childhood experiences you've experienced. And as we get older, we learn to dig deep. It's really important to get down to that root. Somebody said get to the root early. I don't remember who it was, but about getting to the roots, we got to get to the root. I've been doing it myself for the last 2 years with the great men's group that I've been meeting. Got to get to the root. And so, anyway, I digress a little bit, but I just wanted to say that because I think it's important for all of us to understand what ACEs can do, right? And so mentoring is actually seen as one way to mitigate the effects of these adverse childhood experiences by having an adult friend who can meet with you as a child every week and not by any means try to take the place of your parent, right? Just be a friend. Show up and be consistent every week and listen. It makes a big difference. I'll share a real quick story with you, and that's about my mentee. I've been mentoring my mentee since he was in 5th grade, just down the road at Pickle Elementary, actually. And we've been in 4 different schools together because life has happened, right, for him and his family. And I remember, and he's a great kid, you know, and I'm going to call him Jay-Z because that's his initials. I remember one day I showed up at his school in Cedar Creek. God works in amazing ways. I work in Austin, but I live in Bastrop, and his family happened to move in a school district where we're in an area where he was zoned to Bastrop ISD. And so I got to, you know, meet with him at Cedar Creek Middle School, because it was right near my house. I was going to follow him no matter what anyway, right? But it just worked out. One day I went to school and he was in ISS, and I showed up and I was like, what? ISS? You know, why? Not my, you know, my mentee's in ISS. And so I said, well, can I see him anyway, even though he's in ISS, right? And they said, sure. So we shot some baskets. That day we didn't usually do stuff outside, but that day we shot baskets and we talked. He didn't know I was so good at basketball. But that way we talked, and he told me what happened. Basically, it was the whole, kind of like in football when the second person gets called for you know, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, where he brought his speaker to school, or his sister's speaker, and somebody wanted it, and they grabbed it, and they had the tug of war, and they had the little altercation class, so they both got taken to ISS, and we talked. And, you know, as a mentor, you don't judge, never judge. You just listen, and you talk, and you can definitely offer some alternatives. Like, what would you do the next time, kind of a thing, right? And we talked about that, and he gave the right answers, you know, that he wouldn't do that next time, and he'd tell somebody instead of react. And I said, Jay-Z, I said, you know, I'm never going to judge you, and I'm always going to be here as long as I can every week. And you can tell me anything. And he said, I know you're the only one who will ever really listen to me. And that's stuck. Why am I the only one who will ever listen? Well, schools, that's a 1 to 28 ratio on kids. Teachers barely have time trying to keep up with all the things that, like the legislature is telling them to do. And then when you've got a single caregiver because one of your parents is incarcerated, that single caregiver, as y'all know, is just trying to get food on the table, just trying to make ends meet, just trying to make the rent. And when his mom has 5 kids, how's she going to be able to listen to just him? So I'm glad that he said, you're the only one who ever listened, because I'm going to show up as a mentor, and I'm going to be a friend, and we're going to hang out, and we're going to have a good time, and I'm going to be a kid for an hour during lunch, and I'm just going to show up. And that's what it takes, is a dedication to showing up every week. I'll turn the story forward this school year. He's a 9th grader, and I showed up at his high school when I was in high school. And I showed up at his school, and I see this kid coming out of the corner of my eye, and he's kind of got the little face covering on. You see a little mustache creeping up over the face. I'm like, what? And he goes, do you remember me? I said, of course I remember you. And then we set our meetings, and I came back next week, and he proceeded to tell me about 4 different ACEs. I mean, because of the pandemic, we haven't seen each other in person in about a year and a half, but he told me about 4 different things that he and his family were going through. I mean, really tough stuff that, that you shouldn't have to go through as a kid. Many of us did, right? And the fact that he told me those things meant that he was comfortable enough to meet with me that he could share it. So long story short, y'all, mentoring makes a big difference. And so let me tell you where we mentor and how someone can access our mentoring service. So we're a school-based mentoring service. Seedling Foundation makes new matches of kids as young as 2nd semester of kindergarten, new matches as old as 1st semester of 8th grade, but we will support matches through high school and beyond, if that makes sense. Because our research tells us that if you start the mentoring relationship in high school, they don't usually last as long. And so for the impact, you've got to start young, but we'll definitely support them through high school and beyond. We make new matches in 6 school districts, so it's important that as word gets out that people think everybody can get a seedling mentor because they need to be in one of these school districts. We make new matches in Austin ISD, that was our home starting school district, Del Valley ISD, Pflugerville, Hayes Consolidated ISD, and then Austin Achieve and KIPP. So those are the 6 school districts. We make new matches in about 65 different elementary and middle schools. How a child or family accesses mentoring is they go through the school and they talk to the school about seedling. And you can look at our website, seedlingmentors.org, and they can find out if that school is a school where new matches are made and talk to the school council. Okay. And the consent form is sent home to the family because the family must, consent that they want their child to have a mentor. Another condition in order to receive seedling mentoring is that the child must know the truth about their incarcerated parents. It's very important that we bring things to light and not hide, because in the light is where we can choke out that shame and guilt that Lauren was talking about. If we leave things in the darkness, shame and guilt kind of live there, and we don't want that. So we want the children to know the truth. Okay, so that's just a little bit about seedling. We are just in Central Texas right now and trying to grow the more school districts that we can. Okay, a couple of other resources you might look at. One of the ways that seedling got started is there is a website through Rutgers University. There's a national resource for children and families of the incarcerated. That's another great resource through Rutgers University. Ann Atlas Esprin was the thought leader on children who have an incarcerated parent. She helped us get our program started in Austin. We served over 2,500 kids. We also have a scholarship program. I didn't mention that. We give 8th graders, for as much money as we can raise, $5,000 scholarships. And you're like, what? Are you crazy? You give an 8th grader $5,000? Well, we definitely award the scholarship, and we will hold that scholarship until that child graduates from high school, and we will write the check to the junior college, to the trade school, barber school, whatever, for their certification or their high school, or their college degree. $5,000 will almost get you ACC. 2 years, we're probably about to raise. I'm looking at raising that scholarship amount because things have gone up in price. That's a little background on seedling. We're also always in need of mentors. One question that might come up, do you allow formerly incarcerated persons to mentor? And let me tell you, none of this is Dan's rule. None of this is Seedling's rule. We are kind of at the mercy of whatever the school district says, okay? So I'm pretty sure, I don't know the exact number of years. I know it's at least 5 years post-adjudication. This is not Dan's rule. This is not Seedling's rule. This is what the school district has said we must do. So please accept my apologies for that, because if it was up to me, talking to people, would be interviewing people, see if they're a good place to do that, and I would allow it. But the school districts say those rules, so we have to follow that because we have MOUs with the school district. Anyway, does anybody have any questions about seedling or anything like that?
You said that ACEs, what's the acronym stand for? Adverse childhood experiences?
Adverse childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe I missed it, but what made you become involved with seedling?
So adverse childhood experiences have always been my thing as a nonprofit executive director. Prior to Seedling, I was executive director of a children's advocacy center for 15 years, working with kids who had experienced primarily child sexual abuse. And then my family and I, just like the rest of the world, were looking to relocate to Central Texas. And I needed to find a cause that grabbed my heart, and Seedling was it. I remember at Children's Advocacy Center, I met a guy who wanted to volunteer that had been in prison all of his life, and he told me about his kids and all they went through. And so I kind of pay homage to Bruce with Children's Advocacy Center. I also had a cousin who was incarcerated, and the family didn't tell the truth about him and didn't tell the truth about his death. They said that my cousin bled out because he shot himself in the leg. Come on, man. So children who've had, it's just been close to me. You know what I mean? So that's just, kids have always been my heart. So that's the why for me. Yeah. Any other questions?
It's probably incarcerated, but what about the children that have now grown up? It was mentor and what would the
Oh, yeah.
What would the age?
Yeah, so we say minimum of 18, but the key on the kids is their time, is the obligation. We take it real seriously. Like, you better show up every week, at least make 80%. And so we want to check with young people on what their, time ability really is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they really don't have time. They're taking a class, or work. And so it's usually over lunch that people mentor. And we try to set people up 10 to 12 minutes from where they are at work during their lunch hour. Last thing I want to offer before I go is any of you that have nonprofit organizations that you started, that you've already got established. It's also a passion and heart of mine to help people that run nonprofits. It's kind of the thing that I do, as a volunteer. I've been doing it for 20 years. Love doing it. If you need any help, I'm there for you. Whoever's doing it. I just want to be an asset. So just don't hesitate to email me. My email's on the website, dan@seedlingmentors.org. I want to help you as much as I can. It's kind of my little space in the world. So thank y'all for y'all's time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was wonderful. So the next two speakers, I could say so much about Lori that I don't know would be appropriate here. No, it probably would not. But I do want to share how I know Sean Oliver, and I hope he doesn't mind. He's looking at me real concerned right now.
You should.
So there was I can tell a lot of stories about incarceration, but one of the most difficult times I had was at Henley State Jail. They had sent me there to safety, horrible program that we could spend hours discussing about why it's so bad, but it was a substance use program. And it was extremely hot. I don't know if anybody's been to a state jail. They're disgusting, they're hot. The programming was really bad. It was very strict. And every hour on the hour, TDCJ would play the Safe Prison, which is the Prison Rape Elimination Act video, every hour on the hour. And we had to stop what we were doing and watch that video every hour. And this was for 6 months. And there was a wonderful speaker. It was the thing that got me through was this gentleman with a kind face and a very smooth voice who presented. He was dressed in his prison whites, and he was talking about the Prison Rape Elimination Act and why it was so important to be able to identify, sexual assault and all the ways that happens in prison. And I remember, I don't know why, but I found this weird comfort in that, in his part when it got to that video. And I remember thinking, man, you can tell that guy is talented. He's such a natural speaker. And there was just something about him that exuded a genuineness and a sincerity and a professionalism, despite the fact that he was in prison whites. So that is how I got to know Sean Oliver. He saw me through many, many difficult days and times at Henley State Jail just by being a wonderful speaker and a very kind face. So please, Sean, come share with us about reentry.
Hi, it's an honor to be here today. And the subject that I'm speaking on is reentry. I introduced myself earlier, but I just want to reintroduce myself. My name is Sean Oliver. I spent 27 years, 10 months, and 16 days in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. While I was incarcerated, from the first day I was sentenced, I had a made-up mind to prepare myself for what's next. My mother would always share with me that though my body was incarcerated, my mind was not. And when I looked at my peers, rather than behaving like most of the men around me and despising them, what that looks like is I'll eat with you, I'll recreate with you, but I won't let you know anything about my family. I'm definitely not going to let you be my friend. And most definitely, I'm not going to tell you the truth about my life. I chose to do the opposite. I developed some lifelong friendships that continue to help me, teach me, and help me in my reentry in society. I was released in April of 2020, and I came to Austin. And what helped me concerning my reentry was those same friends that I had made when I was incarcerated that I chose to help, regardless of their behavior. Jennifer spoke about the Prison Rape Elimination Act. The majority of my time, 25 of those years, was spent on maximum security units. So the men that I called my friends were really a lot of guys who were gang members, who were the rapists, who were the men who were the most aggressive. But when I looked at them, I looked at myself. And when I saw them, I saw myself. And I said, I'll always believe in you. Because when I look in the mirror, I always believe in myself. And there's nothing different for me than them. And so while I was there, I didn't realize that when I was allowed opportunities to help them, whether it's through that video, whether it's just being a friend, whether it's praying for them, I did not realize that those relationships would translate and help me upon my reentry into society. And so when I reentered and I came to the Austin area, one of the friends, one of the men that I had mentored who belonged to a prison gang, who eventually came out of that prison gang, he worked for an organization called Jail to Jobs. Jail to Jobs was formerly known as Nineveh Ministries. Kim and Chris Haskins are the founders. And so they came out to visit me, my friend, Hermias Cooper, and Chris Haskins, the founder, and he interviewed me. And at the end of the interview, he said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah, what would allow you to come all the way out here to visit me in the midst of COVID? And he said, well, most people, when they get out of jail, because Jail to Jobs hires people who have been in jail or in prison. He said, usually I'll have one or two. I had numerous people tell me that I needed to meet you. And I said, I understand why. And he said, you can tell me why numerous people told me about you. And I said, yeah. I said, I didn't realize all those years of helping people, some good relationships were formed. And I didn't realize that when you help people, then that gives you a position in their life to where when they remember you, when they think about you, all they remember and think about is the help that you provided. And I said, that's why they told you about me, because wherever I go, I just want to help. When I came to Austin and I met Miss Price in 2020, I just availed myself as much as possible to meet people, just say, I want to help. But those friends who I had served time with, one of them put me into contact with Savannah Etheridge. Savannah Etheridge told me about MAP. MAP helped me to understand not only did I have diabetes, but now I have hearing aids and I wear glasses. You might not be able to tell. I'm in pretty good physical condition, but my health is banged up. And without Savannah Etheridge introducing me to MAP, without her introducing me to MAP, I would have already had over $15,000 worth of medical bills. I don't. I'm debt free. So one of the things that helped me rehabilitate was making good relationships with people who might not look like those are good relationships. I'll repeat that again. Oftentimes when people look at people who are formerly or currently incarcerated, all we see is what's on the outside. But if you have been one of those individuals, then you understand that a lot of times the persona that people put off, that's not necessarily true to who they are. And so those friends helped me rehabilitate. Contacts on the outside helped me rehabilitate. In Jail to Jobs, as I told you earlier, we hire at-risk youth ages 15 to 25. I'm not age 15 to 25, but they gave me a job as a supervisor. When they gave me a job as a supervisor, they gave me an opportunity for a second chance. And the skills that I had acquired, such as clerical skills, I was able to jump immediately on board and help with the catering. But the founder told me, he said, I didn't hire you because you can work on a computer. Because just a little sidebar, those who know computers, I knew how to work on laptops, but I did not know how to work on Apple products. Something that helped me rehabilitate. My coworkers were kind enough to be patient with me. But I was mature enough to have a good attitude and just admit when I didn't know things. So friends that I met when I was incarcerated helped me rehabilitate. Different people providing me opportunities and introducing me to resources helped me rehabilitate. And then me having the attitude and humility to be able to tell people, I really don't know how to do this. although you hired me for this job, I did not know it was an Apple computer and it's quite different. But their patience helped me to overcome. And so as I worked at Jail Jobs, when I talked to the youth, I was just at Greater Mount Zion the other day, and I told them, I said, listen, the starting pay is $10. So I saw the look on his face, and I said, I primarily work in Williamson County. And he said, we don't mess with Williamson County. I don't know. And so I said, listen, let me tell you something. $10 an hour doesn't sound like too much. And when I was 18 to 21, this gentleman was 21, I said the most important thing in me in life was how I looked, how I dressed, and what I drove. And if you weren't addressing that, I don't want to hear anything you have to say. He started smiling. I said, now let me let you know. Jail to Jobs, we'll start you off at $10 an hour, but we have a vast network to help you not only understand what you can do well, but also provide you opportunities to do it well. I said, what do you like to do? He says, I want to be a barber. And so I didn't know the name of it. So I asked my coworker, I said, we just ran an academy and the barbershop is called Three Kings. And I didn't know that. I said, what's the barbershop name? I said, and the guy said, oh, I know that barbershop. And I said, don't think of us as a job placement service. The job is a tool. We want to teach you life skills and job skills. You want to be a better barber? Come work for $10 an hour, but no, we can put you in contact with Three Kings. That's their language. And so something that has helped me rehabilitate is helping others. I'm passionate about helping others. I'm going to put myself in a position to help others, but I also understand that I don't come into that situation with my perspective. So many times when people try to help people, they come in from the outside and they're like, you need this, you need this. That's like when I was 18 to 21 and they're saying, you ought to think about this, you ought to think about that. My perspective is what I wear and what I drive. And so something that has helped me rehabilitate whenever I'm faced with a new set of circumstances, even coming today, even meeting you, I come in with a perspective, but I open myself up and try to gain your perspective. And once I gain your perspective, then that shows me how to move. That shows me how to help. That shows me what I need to learn. And so in conclusion, Jail to Jobs helps youth, some who have been incarcerated, others before they get incarcerated, and occasionally even older people such as myself who have been incarcerated. And we have four principal things that we help individuals with. We have workforce development. That means even if we don't offer it as a skill, we will find the youth or the adult a skill. Now, I got to say this when I say adult, because I always get in trouble for this. Once our youth graduate from our program, we get them better jobs because $10 is not a sustainable income. And that's why I always tell them, when you come to us, your job is not only to work, but it is to get from us what you want from us. And so every week I ask my youth, what do you want from us? I just asked a young man who graduated from Success in Round Rock, who I was mentoring. I said, I've asked you for 4 weeks what you want from us. If you finish this summer and you haven't asked me for anything, this is not a good summer. I don't care about you working. That's just something to put money in your pocket. And so we do workforce development. We do spiritual and emotional development. We have an on-staff therapist who's able to come out to the work sites each week and get one-on-one time and develop a one-on-one program for different youth, not according to what she thinks, but according to what they say they want to do. And she helps them through the process. We meet physical needs, meaning on Mondays, I pick up food from a pantry in Cedar Park. And some of the youth, and I want to make sure I phrase this properly, they don't always have meals all day. So we assure that they're going to have meals in the morning. We're sure that they're going to have meals in the afternoon. And then when they go home, for some, we don't know what happens, but we're there. We're there. We're going to get that. So that's physical needs. That's workforce development. That's emotional development. And finally, what we really look at is character development. Because the parents will say, when will my child graduate? Your child might graduate in 30 days. Another child, it might take a year. Graduation from our program means this. You are able to hold down a full-time job. You have the attitude, you have the traits and characteristics that'll lead to promotion, and you graduate from us. We don't hold people back. One of the things I love to say, and it's why you always say that, I say because that's what's passionate to me. We want you to leave us. We don't want you to work for us all the time, but we'll stay with you for a lifetime. So that means we'll help you get a better job. But if you need to call me, and it's sad to say, I just went to a young man's funeral yesterday. His mother called me, and I stuck with him, but he also stuck with drugs. His sister worked for us, and I prayed for his younger brother. And I say all that to say, I don't change people. Our organization is not one where we try to change you. We just give youth an opportunity and provide different opportunities for the youth. And so in closing, what has helped me rehabilitate is being given a second chance by jail jobs. Being able to humble myself and actually voice when I don't know something and learn and do it with a good attitude. And finally, the friendships that I made back here and the relationships that I made up here. Some of the people who are in this room, such as Jennifer, she was kind enough to do an interview with me when I was trying to put together my YouTube channel and everything, but I learned from that interview. And so I ask you, we have a table back here, and if you don't want to come to the table, if you just want a card, if you call me or email me, I'll be more than happy to provide you more information. I'm not up here trying to sell jail jobs. I'm just telling you that jail jobs gave me a second chance opportunity, and that has been key to my reentry. I don't know everyone's understanding, but when I came from incarceration, I had what's called a GPS device. And what that literally meant, I had something around my waist and I had something around my ankle. And I can't even go out the front door. I can't stop for gas, even if I'm about to run out for gas. And I want you to know jail jobs work with me every time. The reason that they put me on the computer because I had to be in one central location. So that's why I believe in the organization, not just because we do good, but because the good that was done for me, I've been able to do that to others. Thank you for your time today. Are there any questions? I'm not being inappropriate. I notice people. Yes, sir.
You said that
I'm hard of hearing, so if you speak up.
You said that your organization doesn't change people, but and I'm not trying to be funny.
Come on.
You've been down for 27 years, but if your organization doesn't try to change the person, how do you work with the spiritual and emotional development, the character development?
Okay.
How does that work?
Okay. I'll use myself as an example. We just put them in contact with some resources that they may not have been able to use before. And what that looks like, our therapist came to the location at the Williams County Animal Shelter. And what she did is she drew a graph and she said, hey, when you come to work every day, if you don't feel like working, you might be in this red space. If you're angry, I'm just making up the colors. If you're angry in this space. So she didn't try to change them, but she showed them when you show up for work, you need to identify how you're feeling, what you're going through, and we can help you because there's some other things that she said. If you come and you identify you're in this color, and we have it listed up there, then do this. My final remark on that is, when I was in prison, I tried to help each and every individual I came in contact with. When I was released, I came to realize that with my help with the individuals, I was not addressing one of the underlying problems, which was a system. So I put all the weight on it. If I give you all the help, even if I don't tell you, if I'm always helping you, you're going to feel the responsibility like the weight is on you. Really, the weight is not on you because as this group has understood, and a lot of you understand better than me, there's some systems in place judicially and educationally that put a bunch of weight on people. And so if we try to change the individual, but we never address the system, then we put the individual at a great disadvantage. Thank you for that word. And so that's what I meant by that. We do what we can, but we understand, lest some of you've helped individuals. I'm gonna say you've helped individuals like me. Man, you can get disappointed. You can get your feelings hurt. It's not up to you to change me, but it is up to you to understand that whatever part you're supposed to play that part. But at the same time, when you play that individual part, when you play that institutional part, like that man said when he goes to mentorship, also understand there's a systematic part that you have to play too. And if you understand all three of those factors, you're going to be a great individual. And I'm not saying you're not great now. I'm saying we can be great. That's it. Thank you for your time.
So I see that Lori's still sitting there because she wants me to introduce her again. No, I'm just kidding. Lori, please come up and share with us about reentry from your experience and the women that you work with.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so glad that Jennifer didn't tell them any number of stories about me that she could have, because she's got photographs, evidence. She's got everything that you don't want to be said and used against you in court of law. So thank y'all for having me today. I'm not always the most comfortable in front of the room because during my prison experience, and I want to hold space and understand that there were a lot of things that led up to my incarceration and a lot of places that something could have changed, right? So maybe some intervention, maybe some rehab, maybe just some sense knocked into me. I'm not sure. But I had some issues, and most of them centered around drug and alcohol use. So me, and I think along with the 85% of the women who are incarcerated, because that's the last figure that I saw, is it's about 85% of women in TBCJ who have substance use issues. So I think Sean did a great job. He's a difficult act to follow. And I can't speak for men's reentry, but I know women. And I know women because when I was in prison myself, I was finding my purpose, even though I didn't realize it at the time. So I did the same thing that I do in the free world sometimes, and I sat back and I listened and I listened and I paid attention and I watched for patterns and I watched for things that made sense and I listened to what people's issues were. I heard things about families. I heard things about substance use problems. I heard things about lack of support. And I looked around and I saw a whole lot of women who looked just like me. Maybe they weren't the same age as me. Maybe they weren't the same race as me. And maybe they didn't come from the same upbringing as me. But I remember sitting on the rec yard at one of the units I was at, just looking around and thinking, this is the face of female incarceration, because they don't look very scary at all.
That is so.
And this is not how I pictured it. So I went to work. I went to work for the education department at one of the units that I was at. And I asked the woman who was my boss at the unit, I said, tell me what's changed. You've worked for the system for a long time. Tell me what's changed. And she didn't even skip a beat. Because she was working in a unit that used to be all men. And then it was co-ed. And then it turned to all female while I was there. And she said, women. We didn't used to lock women up, but now we do. And I do have some figures to back that up. They're sitting on my phone because Ariana texted them to me. And then I got up here and didn't bring my phone, but I can tell you from 1980 to 2017. Y'all know the figures, right? Don't you know the figures? The National Institute of Justice reports that women are the fastest growing incarcerated population in the US. Between 1980 and 2017, the number of incarcerated women has increased 750%. 750%. We're locking up mothers. We're locking up daughters. We're locking up. Yes, we're locking up the backbone to the family. And then we wonder why the system continues to feed on from there. So back to my prison experience. And I don't know about y'all who've had this direct impact, but I wanted to make this first time my last time. Because I had cycled in and out of jail so often. Y'all, I'm from a town of 12,000 people. And when I tell you every police officer knew my name, I am not kidding. They came to my job one day and they said, Ms. Mellinger, you know you don't have a driver's license. Why are you driving? And I looked at them dead in the face and said, I'm not. That's my car right there. I'm not driving. And y'all wonder why I got arrested every time I got pulled over. I wondered why I got arrested every time I got pulled over, but I didn't know how to talk to the police. And they said, there are 25 officers in this town. We all know which drive. So I did what I wanted to do, and I kept doing it because there was really never any consequence to what I did. I know y'all heard Ariana talk about getting expunged. I'm standing up here to tell y'all I'm not the one that paid for it, all right? I am not the one who had the means to pay for that. That was her family, that was her mother or my mother. And we were starting to see that generational thing. So when I went to prison, I started thinking, what can we as a society do differently? How can this change? And I don't know what a lot of you know about women's prison, but I can tell you one thing that women do well, and that's build community. Because I know that in men's prisons, they have the tendency to be a little bit more, maybe about race, maybe about gang, maybe about political power, and maybe about societal structures. But in women's prison, we are all about the family. We have prison mamas. We have prison daughters. I never really had any of that. I had a niece one time. But we build family.
Son-in-laws too.
Yes, that's okay. Right. We don't need to get it all out. We'll let the experts speak on that later.
My great baby.
That's right. That's right. So how do we carry this to the free world, right? What do we do for the women on the outside? And I'm speaking as someone who has not only been impacted, but has a child who's been impacted and has worked with, and I'm not even over exaggerating, y'all, when I tell you at least 600 women who've walked out of prison. 600 women who have walked out of prison. And I can tell you, just like Sean did, there's a lot of heartache. But what I can also tell you is there's a lot of scrappy women out there just trying to get life right this time. And so what are we as a community going to do to support that, right? Because I can tell you most of the women that I've worked with just want another chance to get life right this time. So what are we doing? We need to be providing access for them to mental health. We need to be providing access to that medical assistance. We need to be providing access to something more than service jobs, because that's what the majority of women are walking out into. I was fortunate, I think, to get out of prison, and I relocated to the city of Abilene, where the cost of living isn't super high. In fact, they were just voted as like one of the most affordable living cities in the state of Texas. And in my previous life, and that's how I used to couch it, is pre-felony and post-felony, I was a newspaper editor. I was a reporter, I was a newspaper editor, and I thought I had some things under control. When I got out of prison, the first job application that I filled out asked me to list my criminal history before they asked me to list my qualifications. And that was for a job for $8.50 an hour as a dishwasher for a local restaurant. I was happy to have the job, right? But we as women, and I'm looking at all y'all, all of us who have been to prison and who have been impacted by the system, know how to take that family on the inside and turn it into a strong community on the outside. When I left prison in 2015, I left a little bit of my heart in there. And it has been my life's work since then to help each and every woman who walks out of those doors, whether it's my job or not. I mean, fortunately, right now for me, it is. But I do it, Lauren calls me and I say yes. Helen has called me before. Helen Gabler has called me asking me questions. I say yes. If you guys need help with women's reentry, we're here to help one another, right? So I think the best approach to any sort of reentry is to stop and watch and listen, just like I started doing, because each one of these women who's walking out has their own definition of success. You're not able to define what life should look like for them on the outside any more than I could define Ariana's life when she walked out of prison, and boy, did I want to. I knew what the pitfalls were. I knew what I felt like she ought to avoid, but I also knew that she had to decide for herself what success looked like. So whether that's legislative advocacy, and I'm very heavy into that, whether that's again, access to mental health resources, which is her passion, whether it is more expanded programming for women inside, which I think Lauren touched on, because all they really did with us is sit us down for a little while and tell us to, go forth and sin no more with $50 in our pockets. There's a part that each of us plays in this community. Women are natural at doing this. And I am fortunate enough to just be one of the pieces that allows this whole system to work together, to allow women to no longer have to hit those gates. And when they do have to hit those gates and come out, that they can live the best life, whatever that looks like for them. I feel like I prepared a lot and didn't look at any of it. So, which is what you get when, I'm doing better than Lauren. At least I had a few minutes to prepare for it. We just walked in and said, hey, would you talk about this? But does anybody have any questions? No? All right, then. I'll turn it up. Hey, y'all. Can I introduce Jennifer?
Oh, yeah.
I wish I had the screen projector going because then I could show you pictures. But y'all, when I was in prison, and I love stories and I love to gather stories. When I was in prison, I used to really look forward to getting the Echo, right? Anybody else read the Echo when they were locked up? And I used to see Jennifer's name. What was it called?
A Woman's Perspective.
A Woman's Perspective. And I'm like, man, I was a reporter in the Free. I was a newspaper person. Why do I not have that job instead of this, whoever this Jennifer Noon is? So when Jen got out in, what year did you get out? 2019, 18? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was important for me to know Jennifer because she was like the myth inside,
Yeah.
right? The myth, not so much the legend. I'm kidding. She was a little bit of a legend. And I feel it's such an honor to be able to be in the same spot with Jennifer so many times and to work together on projects. And it's really, really cool to get to see her in the Free doing her thing.
Oh,
Tori. That's the most sincere thing you'll ever hear.
Ever. I'm still not going to take back those things I said earlier. So Lori actually laid a really great foundation to what I'm going to talk about, and hopefully I'll be able to address your question. And that is, what does the landscape look like for women who are incarcerated? So any opportunity I get to talk about women in jails and prisons, I do so passionately. And it's not just because I myself spent almost 20 years in the Texas Youth Commission, known now as the Texas Juvenile Justice Department, which, by the way, completely blows TDCJ away in terms of abuse and horror. It is dumbfounding what our children experience in the Juvenile Justice Department in every which way. They just changed the name. It's still TYC to me. And then as an adult, several, almost 2 decades in TDCJ. So it's important to me because of my experiences. But Lori pretty much said it. It's the community around me that inspired the work that I do. And I wrote an article in the Texas Observer called Invisible Scars. I don't know if any of y'all read it. And I'll kind of give you a brief highlight of that story. It was about a woman that I knew who was a very quiet woman that lived in my dorm. And she told me one night, she said, I'm so excited. My mom's going to finally be able to bring my kids. She had like five or six kids. I think it was 5. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because my parents are coming from East Texas, which they didn't come very often because it's like a 4-hour drive each way. And so we were both very excited about our visits. And I remember I get to visitation a little bit after she got called out. And I walked into the visitation room. And she's getting stripped because we had to get strip searched completely before and after a visit. And I walk in and there is a guard, and this kind of encapsulates most of my experience with TDCJ officers and staff for us women. And it's not to say that the men don't have their own psychological terror from guards, but there is something very unique about the female experience. And that's why I named my article Invisible Scars, Because men come out with very physical scars of incarceration from physical violence, but ours wounds our spirit. It's scars that people often don't see, that what women endure when they're incarcerated. And I walk into this visitation room and this officer is just berating her. Just berating her, snatching her clothes. And I always found like the worst berating and verbal abuse we got was often when we were getting strip searched. It leaves you very vulnerable. It leaves you feeling defenseless. And so she was telling her, I checked your mom in with all those kids. How dare you? Look what you put your mother through. Come up there, you living wild, and your mama got to take care of your kids. And that joy on my sister's face, because that's what every woman in those white human firms were to me and are to me, is that she was just completely dead in the face. She was completely unemotional, because that's what you have to do when you're a woman incarcerated. And she just stood there and she was just like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can cry thinking about it. And so I'm standing there and I'm like, and so the guard turns to me and she said, back up, don't get up on me or I'll cancel your visit. Do you want to go to visitation too? And so I just stepped back and I did the same thing. I just put my hands behind my back and kind of stared, because I didn't want to, look at it at my sister as this was happening, because I could already see the shame and the fear and the terror that, please God, don't let this woman do this to me in front of my kids in this visitation room, which is exactly what happened. And it was when we went in and I sat down with my parents, and she came in and one of her little girls comes running up to her in the visitation room. Mommy, and she's like, oh, she grabs her and hugs her. And it was just this moment of like we weren't even in prison anymore. And I don't have kids. I don't know what that feels like. But I mean, I remember what it's like to be a kid, And we were just like, oh man, and she's hugging her. That guard comes flying around the corner, screaming and yelling and berating her. And, then she starts screaming at her kid, like, you don't know how to behave. And if you don't behave, your mother will just go back to her dorm. And it was a rage. I don't know how to explain it to you. The rage inside of me. And everybody in the room, because we couldn't do anything. Okay, this is what women experience while they're incarcerated. The abuse, the psychological, physical, or sexual abuse that we suffer often is in silence, and to feel helpless, to not to be able to do anything. And all this woman could do was just beg and plead. And, finally the guard backs off and they have their visit. And, my parents are doing everything they can to distract me. And Dad already knows how I'm in. He's like, just be quiet. But I went back to the dorm. And I sat on the floor and I was just, I didn't even know how I felt. But it was in that moment, y'all, after all the years of abuse that I suffered in Texas Youth Commission, several years of TDCJ, it was in that moment with that silent rage that I said, I will do anything in the world to make this stop for them. I wasn't even thinking about myself. It was about the women that I had to watch every single day endure the worst amount of psychological terror that I can't even begin to describe. So that's what fuels my passion to help the women that are, and the girls who are incarcerated in our jails and prisons. I co-founded a group with Lori and Maggie Luna, who can't be here, because she trusted us. Maggie, we're doing so well. We started Lioness, which is Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, and it is currently and formerly incarcerated girls and women fighting to end incarceration and the devaluation of the girls and women in our jails and prison. I don't know if y'all realize this or not, but women are under attack, period. So our work is more important than ever before. Out of about 140,000 is usually the population of TDCJ. It has dropped some, and that was mentioned earlier, that as the incarceration rate goes down, it goes up for women. It went from 7,000 to 8,000. It's almost at 9,000. And it's, why is that? Well, hopefully this answered your question. It's from poverty. It's from what Andrew discussed earlier about education and how that's unequal. It's also about homelessness, mental health. It's about trauma. every single woman and girl that I was incarcerated with, deep levels of trauma before they even ended up in prison. They leave prison with worse trauma and worse physical health outcomes. So out of that, think about that, 140, 120, 140,000, 9,000 are women, which is growing. You can imagine that the system is not designed for women. It never was. Well, I don't think cages were designed for human beings, period, right? But when it comes to programming, women's programming is already, let me try not to use profanity because Maggie she'll get on me. But it's already poor, right? Programming is already poor in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, but for women, it's even worse. And TDCJ released their women's programming report not long ago. And it was interesting that another member of SLC, her name is Alexa Garza, she was incarcerated with me for about 20 years since she was a young girl. And we were talking about looking at that report, and we're like, these things sound great on paper. This report looks really good, but we all know that those programs exist on paper only. Okay, and so the problem with trying to hold the Texas Department of Criminal Justice accountable is that we have no independent oversight. So they literally come to the Capitol and say that we do this, this, and this. Okay, well, how is that? How can we trust you? We just trust you? Yeah, you can trust us. We're doing it, right? And then the women who have been there get up there and testify. That's why our voices are so important. When Maggie testified about how women were degraded concerning their periods and not being able to have the products they need to take care of themselves, TDCJ got up there and, oh, that's not happening. We provide this and this. And the legislator said, so why would that lady come up here and say that? Oh, I don't know why she would say that. And one by one, women came up there and testified about their experience. They cannot continue to get away with just saying we're doing this. When you continue to have people who have experienced it come up there and testify that, no, that was not my experience. So one of the solutions is to hopefully one day get independent oversight of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. The jail system has somewhat of an oversight, although it kind of lacks some bite and some teeth, but still they have some type of oversight. But that would help. What are some other solutions? Reallocating funds into the community so that we don't have to send women into the system, and treating substance use like the public health issue that it is, and not criminalizing it. Better programming, y'all. I told this to a group one time and they were just so flabbergasted. Like our college programming within TDCJ for women, it's associate degree level. The men's have master's programs, like without problem. And I remember that when Alexa, she was one of the last women to get her bachelor's degree, which is about 12, 15 years ago. Although TDCJ, when we met with them, she said, we've had one more since. That's fantastic. And Alexa, in that meeting, she said, you know what they told me when I asked to have a master's program? She was like, no. She said, they told me that we really didn't need one as a woman because our place was in the home. Wow. You say that, but you're keeping me from my family and my home. What sense does that make? And so whatever it was, whether it was commissary items, programming, conditions of confinement, disciplinary, women are disciplined far harsher than men are. There's a great piece, I think it was in NPR, about the statistics of that. That's real. That really happens, where a man gets a minor case for contraband, right? But the woman, like this could be like a needle or a tattoo gun or what have you, some major contraband, and it's minor or he gets punished very lightly. A woman has 7 tampons instead of 6. Okay? And she gets a major case, loses a telephone, loses her visitation, loses rec, loses commissary. She can't see her kids. And this happens all the time. And women, and I remember one time when I was locked up, I said, you guys, this isn't right. We have to do something. And the response was always, this is always the way it's been. And I would tell them, just because this is always the way it's been, doesn't mean it's right. So, you know, I take every opportunity to try to explain what it is that we endure as women and girls in the system. And the reason why we created Lioness, and I picked that name because what better symbol of female empowerment than a lion? We are a sisterhood. And Lori said that too, like, that's how I survived, was that community. And it's like trying to translate that community out here. That has been what's helped me be successful. So a female lion, what does she do? They hunt together, they play together, they take care of their own. And that's what the women who have been incarcerated with me have done for me, and hopefully me for them. So is there any questions about women's prisons or jails? I would love to give us some time for just questions and maybe networking or what have you, if anybody has any questions.
So I do have a question.
Yeah.
My name is Jason Henderson, and I haven't really been affected by jail, been incarcerated. I have been in and out of jail, never in prison. And what I was really focusing on is that basic tool recognition for boys and girls. And what prompted, I'm a master plumber. I take my master's this year. And what I've learned is that when I went to take the ASVAB test, it was socially biased. It would ask questions about tools and that I've never seen before in living in the city or living in an urban area, you know, tools to, you know, pick up hay bales or something. Education is not going to be, everybody's not going to be a student type person, but, you know, getting their hands on things and learning things and getting that sense of self, you know, gratification in that moment, being able to help. So I'm really passionate about kind of the fairness and equality, you know, with women being in the workforce. And I wanted to be able to contribute in any way to that because now I'm starting to see more women plumbers. Like 10 years ago, I was like, oh my God, what is she doing here? But now it's more and more, you know, it's you see it more often. And I just, with my master's license, it'll give me an opportunity to write off people's license to be able to hold these programs. And I want to get myself around people that can help solidify that foundation for me. And because, as we all know, Texas is known for the Emancipation Proclamation, and that's why we just celebrated Juneteenth, for kind of being slow to pass laws that the rest of the United States has passed. So I definitely wanted to become also a voting deputy to get people in and say, okay, we do have a voice and we are able to make a change if we come together as one and be heard as a unit instead of, oh, you're an individual, instead of being socially classified, you know, our what we want to do or what we're doing, to all just come together as one cause. I really got a lot out of this, and I appreciate all of you that took your time to come out here. It's very informative, and I'm hoping to exchange information with someone that I can, you know, the quickest way to get the things that you want out of life is helping others succeed what they need. So I'm here with the heart of a servant, and it was really, really a great opportunity to sit here and listen in on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have something else? Okay, well, we really enjoyed y'all being here. Well, thank you. And please feel free to grab snacks, ask questions, network.
We miss Maggie.
We miss Maggie.
She's here in spirit.
She had COVID. Was I allowed to say that?
I love you.
You just violated all her HIPAA.
All the HIPAA laws were violated. I still
I did amazing. Thank you.
So for more information on the Statewide Leadership Council, you can go to, we've got information here. What is the website? Oh, okay. We've got all the information there. We have a Facebook group. Thank you all.
Yeah.
See you later.
I saw you all around.